The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known galaxy. It floated in space above the neutral world of Nexira Prime. A massive ring of metal and glass where representatives from 47 different alien species gathered to decide the fate of civilizations. Today, they had gathered to decide the fate of Earth. Kang Gin-ho sat in the human delegations section, a small area near the back of the hall. The seats were uncomfortable, designed for bodies very different from human ones. This was intentional. Everything about humanity's position in this hall was intentional. The bad seats, the poor viewing angle, the way other delegates whispered and pointed at them like they were animals in a zoo. Jin-ho had been Earth's chief diplomatic envoy for 12 years. He had learned to ignore the insults. He had learned to smile when alien lords called humans primitive. He had learned to bow his head when they demanded respect they never gave in return. But today, he did not need to pretend anymore. High Arbiter Volrin stood at the central podium. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with blue-gray skin and 4 eyes that could see in spectrums humans could not imagine. His species, the Tyranni, had ruled the Galactic Council for 6,000 years. To Volrin, humans were nothing more than insects that had somehow learned to build spaceships. The matter before us is simple, Volrin announced. His voice echoed through the hall, translated instantly into 100 languages. The species known as humans have repeatedly violated council law. They refuse to pay tribute. They refuse to accept protection treaties. They expand without permission. They show no respect for the order that has kept this galaxy at peace for 10,000 years. Jin-ho listened calmly. Beside him, his assistant, a young woman named Salman Bey, was recording everything. Her hands were steady, but Jin-ho could see the tension in her jaw. She knew what was coming. They all did. Therefore, Volrin continued, I call upon this council to declare humanity a rogue civilization. I call for immediate military action. The combined fleets of the council will converge on the human homeworld and bring them to justice. The hall erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others banged their appendages against their seats in approval. A few remained silent, watching the human delegation with something that might have been pity. Counselor Thesa of the Velari Dominion was one of the silent ones. Her people had been conquered by the council 3,000 years ago. She knew what justice meant when the council spoke the word. It meant death. It meant slavery. It meant the end of everything a species had ever built. The vote was quick. 31 species voted in favor of war. 9 abstained. 7 voted against, but their voices meant nothing. The decision was made. Volrin turned his 4 eyes toward the human delegation. The human envoy may speak if he wishes to beg for mercy. The hall fell quiet. Every eye, every sensor, every attention focused on the small group of humans in their uncomfortable seats. They expected tears. They expected fear. They expected the desperate, pleading that every young species eventually showed when faced with the might of the council. Kang Jin-ho stood slowly. He was not a tall man by human standards, and compared to the massive aliens around him, he looked almost like a child. He adjusted his cufflinks, a small habit he had developed over the years. Then he began to walk toward the central podium. Envoy Kang, Volrin said with amusement, you may speak from your designated area. The central podium is reserved for council members. Jin-ho ignored him. He kept walking until he stood directly below Volrin, looking up at the High Arbiter without any trace of fear on his face. The guards moved to stop him, but Volrin raised a hand. He was curious now. He wanted to see what this small human would do. High Arbiter, Jin-ho said, his voice calm and clear, I want to thank you. The hall went completely silent. Even Volrin seemed confused. Thank me? The High Arbiter asked. Yes. Jin-ho smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but somehow it changed everything about his presence. He no longer looked like a frightened envoy. He looked like someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. You see, my people have laws. Strict laws about starting wars. We could not attack first. We could not fire the first shot. Our hands were tied by our own morality. He paused, letting his words sink in. But you have just declared war on us. You have freed us from those restrictions. You have given us permission to do what we have been preparing to do for 180 years. Valren's eyes narrowed. Preparing? You have been in space for barely 2 centuries. You have no fleet. You have no power. You have nothing. Ginho's smile grew slightly wider. That is what we wanted you to believe. The hall erupted in confused murmurs. Counselor Thesa leaned forward in her seat, her heart beating faster. Something was happening. Something none of them had expected. For 180 years, Ginho continued, we have smiled and bowed and accepted your insults. We let you think we were weak. We let you think we were primitive. We let you underestimate us because that is exactly what we needed you to do. He turned to face the entire assembly, his voice rising. You see us as children playing with toys we do not understand, but you forgot something important. You forgot that humans are very, very good at war. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We have learned lessons about combat that your ancient, peaceful civilizations never had to learn. Valren's amusement was gone now. In its place was the first hint of uncertainty. You are bluffing. You have 200 ships. We will send 40,000. Ho laughed softly. 200 ships. Yes, that is what our public records show. He looked directly into Valren's eyes. Hi, Arbiter. Do you really think we would show you everything we have? He began walking back toward his delegation. The hall was completely silent now. Every representative watched him move, unable to look away. At the door, Ginho stopped and turned one last time. We accept your declaration of war, he said, and I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you chose this. Remember that we gave you every chance to leave us in peace. His smile faded, replaced by something cold and hard. Now it begins. He walked out. The door closed behind him, and in the grand assembly hall, 47 species sat in stunned silence, wondering for the first time if they had made a terrible mistake. The message arrived at Geneva Command Center. Exactly 14 minutes after Kong, Ginho walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall. Admiral. Unipark read it twice, then set down her tablet and looked out the window at the snow-covered mountains. They actually did it, she said quietly. The fools actually did it. Her second-in-command, a man named Colonel Taeyong Kwan, stood beside her with his hands clasped behind his back. Should I alert the president? The president already knows. Admiral Park turned from the window. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Begin activation protocol. All sectors. No exceptions. Colonel Kwan nodded and left the room quickly. Within minutes, encrypted signals were traveling across 17 star systems, reaching hidden bases and secret installations that officially did not exist. Admiral D. Park sat down at her desk and opened a file she had not looked at in 3 years. The cover page showed 2 words, Project Horizon. Below that, in smaller text, for the survival of humanity, she began to read. Even though she knew every word by heart, 180 years ago, the first alien ship arrived in Earth's solar system. It was a Tyranny scout vessel, and its crew looked at humanity with the same expression humans might use when looking at ants. They offered Earth a choice: join the Galactic Council as a protected species, or face the consequences of remaining independent. Earth's leaders asked what protection meant. The Tyranny explained patiently, as if speaking to children. Protected species paid tribute. They provided resources, workers, and soldiers when the Council demanded them. They could not build warships without permission. They could not expand beyond their home system without approval. In exchange, they would be safe from conquest by hostile empires. It was slavery with extra steps. Every human who heard the offer understood this immediately, but the humans smiled and asked for time to consider. The Tyranny gave them 10 years, certain that these primitive creatures would eventually accept their place in the galactic order. After all, every young species did eventually. The Tyranny did not understand humans. During those 10 years, Earth's nations did something they had never done before. They stopped fighting each other. They shared technology, resources, and knowledge. They created the United Earth Government and the United Earth Defense Authority, and they began to prepare. The first step was intelligence. Humans learned everything they could about alien technology, alien tactics, and alien weaknesses. They sent scientists to study on alien worlds, pretending to be eager students. Those scientists memorized every detail they saw and reported back to Earth. The second step was development. In secret laboratories hidden deep underground and inside hollowed-out asteroids, human engineers began building weapons. Not copies of alien technology, but improvements. Humans looked at alien shield systems and found ways to break them. They looked at alien faster-than-light drives and made them faster. They looked at alien ships and found weaknesses that no species had ever thought to fix. The third step was patience. Earth officially built a small defense fleet of 200 ships. These ships were adequate, but not impressive. They were exactly what the Council expected from a young species. But behind this public fleet was something much larger, the Hidden Fleet. 7,400 warships, built in secret over 150 years. Hidden in asteroid fields, gas giant moons, and specially constructed dimensional pocket stations. Every ship was more advanced than anything in the Council's arsenal. Every crew was trained using combat simulations based on real alien battle data, and no one in the galaxy knew they existed. Admiral Park closed the file and walked to the main command center. The room was filled with officers working at holographic displays. She could see the activation signals spreading across human space like ripples in a pond. Admiral. Young officer named Lieutenant Yoonji Han looked up from her station. We have confirmation from all sectors. The Hidden Fleet is coming online. How long until full combat readiness? 16 hours for the inner sectors? 32 hours for the outer perimeter. Admiral Park nodded. And what about Project Lighthouse? Lieutenant Han checked her display. Dr. Choi reports 97% readiness. She says it will be fully operational within 48 hours. Could get me a channel to the Taegu. The display flickered, and a man's face appeared. Captain Min-Ho Lee was in his 40s, with gray at his temples and tired lines around his eyes. He had commanded the Taegu for 6 years, running patrols along the border of human space. He had never fired a shot in anger. That was about to change. Admiral, he said. I assume we have received the news. We have. The Council has declared war. The Corvan Empire is sending their advance fleet through the Kepler Corridor. 800 ships under Warlord Grath. They expect to reach New Busan in 6 days. Captain Lee's expression did not change. And our response? You will take the Taegu and the Third Strike Group to intercept them. 200 ships against 800. Admiral Park allowed herself a small smile. I want you to show them what humanity has been hiding. Understood. Captain Lee paused. Admiral, my daughter lives on New Busan. I know. I will not let them reach her. I know that too, Captain. That is why I am sending you. The channel closed. Admiral Park stood in the center of the command room, surrounded by the quiet sounds of officers working, machines humming, and signals traveling across the stars. 180 years of preparation. 180 years of smiling and bowing and pretending to be weak. 180 years of building and training and waiting, and now? Finally, the waiting was over. She thought about all the alien ambassadors who had visited Earth over the years. They had seen the parks and the museums and the schools. They had seen humans laughing and playing and living peaceful lives. They had concluded that humanity was soft, harmless, easy to conquer. They had not seen the fire that burned beneath the surface. They had not understood that humans had spent thousands of years fighting wars against each other, developing strategies and weapons and tactics that no peaceful alien civilization could imagine. They had not realized that the only thing more dangerous than a human at war was a human who had been given 2 centuries to prepare for. One Admiral Park looked at the display showing the Hidden Fleet activating across human space. 7,400 ships, millions of trained soldiers, technology that the galaxy had never seen, the Council thought. They were declaring war on a primitive species. They were wrong. Warlord Grath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Corvan dreadnought Iron Fury, and smiled with all 3 rows of his teeth. Through the viewing screen, he could see the Kepler corridor stretching before him, a river of stars leading directly to human space. Behind him, 800 warships followed in perfect formation. It was the largest Corvan fleet assembled in 200 years, and he commanded it all. Warlord, his second-in-command, reported, "We will reach the human colony world in 18 hours. Scouts report no defensive presence in this sector." Grath laughed. It was a harsh, rumbling sound. Of course there is no defense. These humans are cowards. They hide behind their diplomats and their words. They have no stomach for real war. He turned to face his officers. "When we reach New Busan, we will burn their cities and take their people as slaves. We will show the galaxy what happens to species who defy the Council. And when we are done, we will continue to their homeworld and finish what we started." His officers cheered. The Corvan were a warrior species. They lived for battle, for conquest, for the glory of crushing weaker enemies beneath their feet. This war would bring them honor and wealth beyond measure. Warlord. A censor officer's voice cut through the celebration. "I am detecting something strange. Multiple energy signatures appearing around the fleet." Grath frowned. "What kind of signatures?" I do not understand." "Ships, Warlord. Many ships. They are appearing from nowhere." Grath turned to the viewing screen. For a moment, he saw nothing but empty space. Then, in the blink of an eye, the stars went dark. Human warships materialized around the Corvan fleet like ghosts appearing from thin air. They did not emerge from hyperspace tunnels like normal vessels. They did not approach from any direction. They simply appeared, surrounding the 800 Corvan ships in a sphere of metal and weapons. Grath stared at the tactical display. His mind refused to accept what he was seeing. 200 ships. That was what the report said. The humans had 200 ships total, but the display showed more than 200 ships in this sector alone, and they were not the small, weak vessels that intelligence had described. These ships were sleek and deadly, covered in weapon ports and shielded by energy fields that pulsed with strange light. A communication signal forced its way through the Corvan systems. A human face appeared on the main screen. The man was calm, with steady eyes and a voice that held no trace of fear. "Warlord Grath, I am Captain Minho Lee of the United Earth Defense Authority. You have entered sovereign human territory with hostile intent. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender." For a moment, Grath could not speak. Then rage replaced his confusion. "Surrender? You dare to demand surrender from me?" He slammed his fist against his command console. "I have 800 warships. You have barely 200. I will destroy you and scatter your atoms across this corridor." Captain Lee's expression did not change. "You have 20 seconds. 8. All ships." Grath roared. "Target the human vessels. Fire everything." 800 Corvan warships opened fire simultaneously. The space around them, filled with plasma bolts, missiles, and energy beams. Enough firepower to crack a small moon was directed at the human fleet, and nothing happened. The plasma bolts struck the human shields and disappeared. The missiles detonated harmlessly against barriers that seemed to absorb the explosions. The energy beams scattered and faded like light hitting a mirror. On the Taegu, Captain Lee watched the Corvan attack fail. He thought about his daughter, Su-Yan. Living on New Busan, he thought about the life she might have. Growing up in a galaxy where humans were free. He thought about all the sacrifices that had led to this moment. "Time's up," he said quietly. Then, louder, "All ships, engage." The human fleet fired. Corvan shields were considered among the strongest in the galaxy. They could withstand hours of bombardment from conventional weapons. But the humans had not built conventional weapons. The first volley of human missiles passed through Corvan shields like they were not there. They detonated inside the ships, tearing apart engine rooms and weapon bays. The second volley targeted communication arrays, blinding the enemy fleet. The third volley went for propulsion systems. Within 2 minutes, 200 Corvan ships were disabled or destroyed. Within 5 minutes, the number doubled. The Corvan fleet tried to retreat, but the human ships moved faster than anything they had ever seen. They tried to regroup, but human weapons found them wherever they gathered. They tried to surrender, but in the chaos of battle, their signals could not get through. Warlord Grath watched his fleet die around him. The Iron Fury shook with each impact, systems failing one by one. His officers screamed orders that no one could follow. His warriors fired weapons that could not hit their targets. "This is impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." A human ship appeared directly in front of his viewing screen. It was the Taigu. Through the glass, Grath could see the human captain looking at him with eyes that held no mercy and no fear. "Warlord Grath," Captain Lee's voice came through the speakers. "Your fleet is defeated. Your flagship is surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." Grath looked at the tactical display. Of his 800 ships, only 188 remained operational. The rest were burning wrecks drifting through space. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. 11 minutes slowly, Grath raised his hands. "I surrender." The Corvan warriors in the bridge stared at him in shock. Their warlord had never surrendered in his life, but Grath was not looking at them. He was looking at the human ships that surrounded him, at the technology that should not exist, at the power that had crushed his fleet like insects. "What are you?" he asked quietly. Captain Lee's response was simple. "We are human, and we have and waiting for you." An hour later, Grath stood in chains aboard the Taigu, surrounded by human soldiers. Through a window, he could see the wreckage of his fleet. He could see rescue ships pulling survivors from damaged vessels. He could see humans treating wounded Corvan warriors with medical care that enemies had never shown his people before. Captain Lee approached him. "You will be transported to Earth as a prisoner of war. You will be treated fairly, but you will also be a message. A message." Grath's voice was hollow. "Yes." Captain Lee looked out at the stars. "A message to the Council. A message that this war will not go the way they expected." He turned back to the Corvan warlord. "You are the first to learn the truth about humanity. You will not be the last." The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. 800 Corvan warships destroyed in 11 minutes. Warlord Grath captured alive. The human fleet suffering no losses at all. At first, no one believed it. Then the footage arrived. Counselor Thesa watched the battle recording in her private chambers on Nexira Prime. She watched the human ships appear from nothing. She watched the Corvan weapons fail against shields that should not exist. She watched the precise, methodical destruction of a fleet that was supposed to be invincible. And for the first time in 3,000 years, she felt something she had forgotten existed. Hope the Valari Dominion had been conquered by the Council long ago. When Thesa's ancestors still believed that diplomacy could protect them, they had trusted the Council's promises of peace and cooperation. They had trusted too long. Now the Valari served as administrators and bureaucrats, their spirit broken, their pride forgotten. But watching the humans fight, Thesa remembered that there was another way. Resistance was possible. Victory was possible. The Council was not invincible. She needed to speak with Kang Jinhyu. The meeting was arranged secretly. In a neutral station on the edge of Council space. Thesa wore no official markings. Jinho came alone, without guards or assistants. They sat across from each other in a small room with no windows. Counselor Jinho said, "You are taking a great risk by meeting me." "I know." Thesa's voice was quiet, but steady. "If the High Arbiter discovers this, I will be executed. But I had to ask you something." She looked at him with eyes that had seen centuries of oppression. "Is there hope? Not just for humanity, but for the rest of us? For all the species who live under the Council's control?" Ginho was silent for a long moment. He understood what she was really asking. She was asking if humanity planned to replace one empire with another. She was asking if her people would simply trade one master for a different one. "Earth does not want an empire," he said finally. "We want to be left alone. We want to live our lives without interference from species who think they have the right to control us." "But you are not alone," Thesa said. "There are hundreds of species in this galaxy who feel the same way. who are tired of paying tribute, who are tired of bowing to the council. If you defeat them, what happens to us? Ginho leaned forward. When I was young, my grandmother told me stories about our history, about the times when humans conquered other humans, about the empires we built and the terrible things we did in the name of power and control. She also told me about the lessons we learned, about how we discovered that true strength is not about dominating others. It is about standing with them. He reached across the table and took Thessa's hand. When this war is over, things will be different. I cannot promise you exactly what the future will look like, but I can promise you this: humanity remembers what it feels like to be small, to be threatened, to be told that we must serve or be destroyed. We will not become the thing we fought against. Thesa's eyes filled with tears. The Valari have waited 3,000 years to hear words like that. Then wait a little longer, Jinho said, and be ready. Because when the time comes, we will need allies who remember what freedom means. While Ginho met with Thesa, the Council was preparing its response to the Kepler Corridor defeat. High Arbiter Volron stood before the military commanders of 12 species and demanded answers. How did this happen? His 4 eyes blazed with fury. How did a primitive species destroy our fleet in minutes? The commanders had no answers. Their intelligence reports had been wrong. Their assumptions had been wrong. Everything they thought they knew about humanity had been wrong. It does not matter how it happened, Volron said. What matters is that we respond with overwhelming force. I want every warship in Council space mobilized, every reserve fleet activated, every ally called to service. He slammed his fist on the table. We will send 40,000 ships to Earth. We will burn their planet to ash. We will destroy every human colony, every human station, every human ship. We will erase them from history, and no species will ever dare defy the Council again. The commanders exchanged nervous glances. 40,000 ships was more than the Council had ever assembled for any war. It would leave many sectors undefended. It would strain supply lines to their breaking point. But none of them dared argue with the High Arbiter. The mobilization order went out across Council space. The largest armada in galactic history began to gather. On Earth, Admiral Unipark watched the reports come in. 40,000 ships. It was a staggering number, but she had expected it. Volron could not accept defeat. He could not accept the possibility that the Council might be wrong about anything. He would throw everything he had at humanity rather than admit weakness. Admiral Dr. Hannah Choi entered the command center. She was a small woman with glasses and perpetually messy hair, but her mind was sharper than any weapon. Project Lighthouse is ready. Admiral Park nodded. Explain it to me again? I want to make sure I understand exactly what we are dealing with. Dr. Choi activated a holographic display. The lighthouse is a system-wide disruption field. When activated, it prevents any faster-than-light travel within the affected area. Ships can enter, but they cannot leave. Their FTL drives simply will not function. So when the Council fleet arrives at Sol... they will be trapped. No retreat. No reinforcements. No escape. Dr. Choi adjusted her glasses. It will be their entire military force against ours, in a single engagement. Winner takes everything. Admiral Park looked at the display for a long moment, and you are confident it will work. The technology is based on principles the Council does not even know exist. Their scientists will not be able to counter it because they will not understand what is happening. Dr. Choi smiled slightly. By the time they figure it out, the battle will be over. Admiral Park made her decision. Deploy the lighthouse and Sol system. Configure it to activate the moment the Council fleet arrives. She turned to face her command staff. Send word to all hidden fleet units. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. I want them at Earth in 48 hours. Colonel Taeyeon Kwan stepped forward. Admiral, are we really going to fight the entire Council military in one battle? Yes. Admiral Park's voice was hard as steel. They want to destroy us with overwhelming force. We are going to show them what overwhelming force really looks like. She looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth, at the planet that had raised humanity from the mud to the stars. Let them come. Let them all come. This ends now. The Council Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol System on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. 40,000 warships from 12 different species filled the darkness between stars. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds? High Arbiter Volrin stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Eternal Judgment, and looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. The human homeworld was just hours away. Soon, this nightmare would be over. Signal all ships, he commanded. Begin advance formation. The lights flickered. Every system on the bridge went dark for half a second, then came back online. But something was different. Something was wrong. High Arbiter. A sensor officer's voice was filled with panic. Our FTL drives have gone offline. We cannot enter hyperspace. Our turned sharply. What do you mean? I mean, we are trapped, High Arbiter. Every ship in the fleet reports the same problem. We can move at normal speed, but we cannot leave this system. Before Volrin could respond, the tactical display updated, and his blood ran cold. The humans were waiting for them. 7,000 warships hung in formation between the Council, fleet, and Earth. They had appeared from nowhere, just as they had in the Kepler corridor. But this time, they were not surrounding a single enemy force. They were defending their home. Admiral Unipark's face appeared on every communication screen in the Council fleet. Her voice was calm and clear. Attention, Council forces. You have entered the Sol System with the intention of destroying our world. You have brought 40,000 ships to kill our people and burn our cities. You believed we would be helpless. You believed we would beg for mercy. She paused. You were wrong. The display showed the human fleet spreading into attack formation. Behind them, the blue-green marble of Earth hung in the darkness, beautiful and fragile and precious. You came here to end humanity, Admiral Park continued. Instead, you have given us the opportunity to end this war. Your FTL drives will not function in this system. There is no retreat. There is no escape. You will face us here, or you will die here. The choice is yours. Volrin's hands shook with rage. All ships, attack. Destroy them. Destroy everything. The battle for Earth began. The Council fleet outnumbered the humans nearly 6-1. But numbers meant nothing against technology they could not match. Human ships moved through the enemy formation like predators through a herd of prey. Their weapons tore through Council shields. Their own shields absorbed everything the Council could throw at them, Captain. Minho Lee commanded the Taigu from the center of the human line. He watched the battle unfold around him, calling out orders, adjusting tactics, pressing every advantage. The Council ships fought bravely, but bravery could not overcome physics. Their weapons were simply not strong enough. Their ships were simply not fast enough. One by one, the Council flagships fell. The Corvon dreadnoughts that had terrorized 100 worlds were reduced to burning wreckage. The Tyranny cruisers that had conquered species for 6,000 years were torn apart by weapons they could not understand. The combined might of the Galactic Council crumbled like sand before a tidal wave. 3 hours into the battle, Volrin's command ship was surrounded. Human Marines boarded the Eternal Judgment, fighting through corridors filled with desperate Tyranny soldiers. When they reached the bridge, they found the High Arbiter standing alone, his officers dead or surrendering around him. Captain Lee was the first human Volrin saw. The High Arbiter looked at him with eyes filled with hatred and disbelief. "What are you?" Volrin whispered. "What kind of monsters are you?" Captain Lee holstered his weapon. "We are not monsters. We are humans. And your war is over." The Battle of Sol ended 6 hours after it began. Of the 40,000 Council ships, only 8,000 remained operational. The rest were destroyed or disabled. Human losses totaled 847 ships, less than 12% of their fleet. It was the most complete military victory in galactic history. In the days that followed, the surviving Council leaders were brought to Earth. They expected punishment. They expected slavery. They expected humanity to do to them what they had done to so many other species. Instead, They found Kong Gin-ho waiting for them. The meeting took place in Geneva. In a building that had once housed the old United Nations, representatives from 47 species sat in a great hall, surrounded by human guards who watched them with steady eyes. Gin-ho stood at the podium where high arbiters had never stood. He looked at the alien faces before him, some filled with fear, some with anger, some with confusion, and some, like Counselor Thesa, with hope. "The old order is finished," Gin-ho said. "The Galactic Council as you knew it no longer exists. The empires that ruled through fear and force have been broken." He paused. "But we are not here to replace one tyranny with another." The hall fell silent. Every alien leaned forward, desperate to hear what would come next. "Earth does not seek dominion over you," Gin-ho continued. "We do not want your tribute. We do not want your submission. We want something the Council never offered any species. True partnership, equality, freedom." He gestured to a document displayed on the screens around the hall. "This is the charter for a new organization. We call it the Galactic Compact. Every species that signs it agrees to respect the sovereignty of others. Every species that signs it agrees to never attack another member without cause. Every species that signs it agrees that the strong should protect the weak, not prey upon them." Counselor Thesa was the first to stand. "The Valari Dominion will sign." The representatives rose. One by one, species that had been enemies hours ago agreed to build something new. Not all of them. Some refused, too proud or too afraid to trust. But enough agreed. Enough believed. When the ceremony ended, Admiral Park found Gin-ho standing by a window, looking up at the stars. "Do you think they understand?" she asked. "Do you think they know we never wanted any of this?" Gin-ho was quiet for a long moment. "Some of them understand now. Others will learn. It will take time, generations maybe, to build the trust that was destroyed over 10,000 years." He turned to face her. "That is what I meant when I said now it begins. Not the war. That was the easy part. This is the hard part. Building something worth protecting. Proving that power does not have to mean cruelty." Admiral Park nodded slowly. "And if we fail, then we try again." Gin-ho looked back at the stars. "That is what humans do. We fall down. We make mistakes. We cause pain and suffering and destruction. But we also get back up. We learn. We grow. We become better." He smiled, the same small smile he had shown in the council chamber so many days ago. "The galaxy has never seen anything like us. They thought we were weak because we value peace. They thought we were foolish because we believe in mercy. They will learn that these things are not weaknesses. They are what make us strong." Outside the window, Earth turned slowly beneath them. Blue oceans and green continents and white clouds, small world that had given birth to a species. The galaxy would never forget. The war was over. The future was just beginning.